Imagine buying your dream home in London, watching its value climb year after year. Then one morning you check Rightmove and see a for sale sign identical to yours 3 doors down, except theirs is £30,000 cheaper. Then another one appears. Then another. That is not a hypothetical. That is happening today, in real streets, in real postcodes across the city. And the citywide headline number is doing an exceptional job of hiding it. London's average home price officially sits at £553,000, confirmed by the ONS for April 2026. The headlines are proud of it. Investors are quoting it. Estate agents are framing it. But here is the thing about averages: they lie beautifully. They smooth out disasters. They take the best performing streets and blend them with the worst until everything looks acceptable from a distance. Up close, in 10 specific boroughs across the city, the picture is not just different. It is alarming. In some of these areas, prices are falling sharply. In others, prices that look stable on paper conceal a market where buyers have vanished, transaction volumes have collapsed, and sellers are quietly accepting that the number they were quoted 3 years ago is no longer real. The result, in every case, is the same: a market in serious trouble that the London average is working overtime to conceal. If you own property in any of these areas, or you are thinking of buying, this is data you cannot afford to miss. Number 10. Croydon, South London. Croydon spent years trying to reinvent itself, and honestly, the pitch was not entirely unreasonable. New tramlines, the Westfield development, shiny office towers, and a genuine argument that this South London borough could become a real alternative to Inner London at a more affordable price point. Investors believed it. Developers built thousands of new flats. Prices climbed through the 2000s and 2010s, and for a while the momentum felt real. Then reality arrived. The ONS confirmed that Croydon's average house price was £395,000 in April 2026, down 2.1% from April 2025. That annual fall sits against a backdrop of severe listing stress. Nearly 19% of properties currently listed in Croydon have had their asking prices reduced, almost 1 in 5 sellers publicly admitting they aimed too high. The average time a home spends on the market has stretched significantly from the frenetic pandemic-era pace, and the gap is widening month by month. The core problem is a catastrophic oversupply of near-identical new-build flats that flooded the market faster than genuine demand could absorb them. Walk through East Croydon today and the for-sale signs are everywhere. Those developments that were marketed to young professionals sit partially empty, with developers quietly offering incentives that were never mentioned in the original brochures. The council's well-publicized financial difficulties have added another layer of anxiety for buyers now quietly wondering about future council tax rises and service cuts. Croydon is not finished, but it overestimated demand, and the correction is painful for anyone who bought in the last 3 years expecting steady appreciation. Number 9. Tower Hamlets, East London. Tower Hamlets is home to the glittering towers of Canary Wharf, the very symbol of London's financial ambition. But look past the glass and steel and you will find a residential market in acute distress. The ONS confirmed that the average house price in Tower Hamlets was £458,000 in April 2026, down a striking 12.6% from April 2025. That is one of the steepest annual falls of any London borough, and the story behind that number is a textbook case of a buy-to-let hangover arriving all at once. For years, developers flooded this area with luxury one-bedroom apartments designed for young city professionals and overseas investors hungry for a slice of London's financial district. But with borrowing costs remaining elevated and the rise of flexible working reducing the urgency of living within walking distance of Canary Wharf, that steady stream of buyers has slowed to a trickle. The result is a supply glut of near-identical flats with nobody willing to pay the prices owners paid 3 or 4 years ago. When 5 identical apartments are listed in the same building and buyers have the patience to wait, the only direction prices can move is down. Tower Hamlets is proving, at considerable expense to its owners, that proximity to money does not automatically make your property a safe investment. Number 8. Barking and Dagenham, East London. Barking and Dagenham was supposed to be the next Stratford. The arrival of the Elizabeth Line, massive new housing developments, and the high-profile opening of Eastbrook Studios were supposed to trigger the kind of regeneration that turns a forgotten borough into the next big thing. Prices jumped on the strength of that promise. The problem is that promises and reality operate on very different timelines. The ONS confirmed the average house price in Barking and Dagenham was £360,000 in April 2026, essentially flat from April 2025, recording zero meaningful annual growth. Zero growth sounds stable until you account for inflation running above 2%, mortgage rates sitting at 5.07%, and the energy price cap rising 13% on July 1st, confirmed by Ofgem. In real, purchasing power-adjusted terms, Barking and Dagenham homeowners have lost ground while standing still. The percentage of listings carrying price reductions sits above 20%. The average number of days a home spends on the market has crept toward the high 80s, which in London terms is an eternity. The studios did arrive, and productions are filming there. But that has not translated into a residential boom. Film crews do not necessarily want to live next to where they work. The uncomfortable truth is that buyers are not yet convinced the area has genuinely transformed, and they are pricing that uncertainty in accordingly. When multiple near-identical new-build developments launch within half a mile of each other and compete for the same thin pool of buyers, there are no winners. Number 7. Ilford, East London. Ilford requires the most careful reading, because on paper it has genuine credentials. A crossrail station, solid transport connections into central London, a functioning high street, and schools that have improved meaningfully. The ONS data for Redbridge, the local authority covering Ilford, shows an average house price of £503,000 in April 2026, up 2.7% annually. Price growth, not price falls. But the borough-level headline conceals something that street-level data makes very visible. A listing market under increasing strain, a growing proportion of sellers reducing asking prices, and average days on market stretching well beyond what the 2021 and 2022 market experienced. What Ilford is suffering from is not yet a price crash. It is something in some ways worse, the slow, grinding erosion of buyer confidence before the formal numbers move. Buyers who can stretch to £450,000 are increasingly choosing areas with stronger reputations. Buyers with smaller budgets are finding cheaper options further into Essex. Ilford sits awkwardly in the middle, and the middle is precisely where you do not want to be in a market where buyers have become selective. The rental market is holding up better than sales, which tells you something important. People will rent in Ilford because it is practical. But purchasing conviction is fragile. And when buyer confidence retreats before prices formally fall, price falls are usually what follows next. Number 6. Newham, East London. Newham's inclusion on this list surprises some people, because Stratford sits inside the borough and Stratford is supposed to be thriving. But Newham is a large and varied place, and Stratford's success has not spread evenly. Head east toward Canning Town or north toward Manor Park, and you will find a very different market to the one the Olympic legacy promised. The ONS confirmed Newham's average house price at £395,000 in April 2026, down 3.2% from April 2025. Price reductions are appearing on over 20% of listings across the borough. The issue is a combination of oversupply and stubborn affordability limits that have collided with uncomfortable force. Newham absorbed thousands of new flats over the past decade, many of them built on the assumption that Stratford's regeneration glow would radiate outward indefinitely. It did not. The glow stopped at a very specific geographical and psychological boundary, and now developers are trying to shift apartments in areas that have neither Stratford's infrastructure nor its reputation. Garrington's 2026 Quality of Life Assessment ranked Newham as the fourth worst London borough to live in, with reviewers specifically citing housing value concerns and well-being metrics. Some parts of this borough will eventually have their moment. Others may be waiting considerably longer than the developers who priced them at a premium had hoped. Number 5. Enfield, North London. Enfield is a vast and genuinely varied borough, which is part of the problem. You have areas like Enfield Town that are pleasant and family-friendly, and then you have Edmonton, which occupies a very different rung of the market. The borough as a whole is seeing an ONS-confirmed average price of £465,000 in April 2026, down 1.3% from April 2025, making Enfield one of the few London boroughs posting a confirmed annual price decline in the most recent data. Enfield stretched too far during the pandemic boom. Developers surveyed Zone 4 and Zone 5, noted decent transport links into the city, and assumed buyers would follow in significant numbers. Some did. Most did not. And the ones who did are now quietly questioning whether they overpaid for what they actually received. The northern reaches of Enfield feel genuinely suburban, almost as if you have left London entirely, which appeals to some families seeking space and greenery. But when you are paying London prices and London stamp duty for something that feels like Hertfordshire, the value proposition becomes very difficult to justify, especially when actual Hertfordshire is right there and frequently cheaper. Enfield also suffers from a persistent identity problem. Not quite London, not quite the home counties, not quite anything with a brand strong enough to anchor emotional buyer decisions. You can reach King's Cross in roughly 30 minutes from Enfield town, which is reasonable on paper. But commuting into London is not the same as living in London, and buyers increasingly want to feel the city around them when they are paying London prices to inhabit it. Number 4. Havering, East London. If your first instinct on reading Havering was to wonder where exactly that is, you have just illustrated the borough's central problem in one involuntary response. Sitting on the far eastern edge of Greater London and bordering Essex, Havering, with Romford as its principal town, shows an ONS-confirmed average house price of £447,000 in April 2026, up a modest 1.8% annually. But that headline growth figure conceals a market that is actively stalling. Price reductions are appearing on over 19% of active listings. Days on market are extending. And the general mood among sellers carries something approaching quiet resignation. People bought here believing it was the next affordable frontier of London living. Decent schools, green spaces, and an Elizabeth line connection that would unlock the city. The line did arrive, and it helped initially. But Crossrail did not magically transform Romford into somewhere people aspire to live. What it did was make it considerably easier to leave. And that, painfully, is exactly what is happening. Residents are using Romford as a base from which to commute, but they are not building lives there in the way that sustains a property market long-term. The high street is struggling. The local economy feels flat. And buyers are increasingly asking a simple but devastating question. Why pay London council tax and London stamp duty to live somewhere that feels nothing like London? So far, nobody has found a convincing answer. Number 3. Bexley, South East London. Bexley is where the affordability trap becomes most visible in the data. The ONS confirmed average price is £408,000 in April 2026. Up 2.5% annually. But modest nominal growth at that level, set against a 5.07% mortgage rate, a 13% energy price cap rise arriving July 1st, and inflation remaining above target, means that real purchasing power for buyers in Bexley has deteriorated sharply even as the headline number has nudged upward. Over 21% of listings have seen asking price reductions. The average time a property spends on the market is extending month by month. Sellers who priced at or near pandemic-era valuations are finding those valuations met with silence. Bexley's problem is stark in its simplicity. It offered one thing: relative affordability. During the pandemic, that was enough. People paid elevated prices to secure gardens, extra bedrooms, and the breathing room that lockdown made non-negotiable. Now that urgency has subsided, buyers are asking difficult questions about what they are actually getting for their money. Limited employment options beyond commuting. Limited cultural infrastructure. Transport to Cannon Street that takes 45 minutes on a good day. Functional rather than inspiring. Bexley is a dormitory borough at heart, and dormitory boroughs do not sustain elevated prices when the initial wave of emergency buyers dries up and rational market behavior returns. The formal price data has not yet moved sharply. The listing stress is telling you it is moving. Number 2. Sutton, South London. Sutton claims second place in this analysis with an ONS-confirmed average price of £452,000 in April 2026, up 2% annually. But as with Bexley, the nominal growth figure understates the pressure the market is actually under. Asking price reductions are appearing on nearly 23% of active listings, one of the higher concentrations in South London. Average days on market are extending considerably. Buyer inquiry rates are falling. Sutton's pitch has always been suburban family life on the southern edge of London, with decent schools, green spaces, and a postcode that technically keeps you within Greater London's borders. The trouble is that those same qualities exist across the Surrey border, and increasingly, buyers are choosing to simply cross it and leave London's tax structure behind entirely. When your primary selling point is being a more accessible version of somewhere else, and that somewhere else starts to look comparably affordable, you lose the argument. The listing stress data, the proportion of sellers cutting prices, the time properties are sitting unsold, suggests that nominal price growth in Sutton is masking a market where completed transactions are becoming harder to achieve at any price, and where the gap between what sellers expect and what buyers will pay is widening week by week. The formal correction in the ONS data, when it arrives, will simply confirm what the listing market is already saying. Number 1. Kensington and Chelsea, West London. And then we arrive at the top spot, the borough that nobody, truly nobody, expected to see on a list like this. Kensington and Chelsea, the most expensive borough in the country. The address that has always been synonymous with permanent, unassailable wealth. Where a for sale sign used to disappear within days, sometimes hours, of appearing. Except now they are staying up. And the price reductions are not in the tens of thousands. They are in the hundreds of thousands. The ONS confirmed that Kensington and Chelsea's average house price was £1,273,000 in April 2026, down 8.4% from April 2025. That annual fall represents approximately £117,000 wiped from the average home's value in 12 months, while the mortgage attached to it remained exactly the same size. The Evening Standard, cross-referencing ONS borough data, confirmed this was part of a 9-month consecutive run of London price falls, with Kensington and Chelsea leading the decline from the very top of the market downward. In specific elite postcodes within the borough, local reporting in the Chelsea Citizen has cited flat price falls of up to 17% in 12 months, figures that represent extraordinary sums of money at these price levels. Over 25% of active listings in the borough have had their asking prices reduced. The fundamental driver is one the official statistics confirm but rarely explain with sufficient clarity. International capital, which has propped up this market for decades, is quietly and efficiently moving elsewhere. Overseas investors who once treated prime central London property as the world's most reliable store of wealth are now calculating yields against high borrowing costs and finding that the numbers do not justify the price of admission. Other international cities are absorbing capital that once flowed automatically toward SW3 and W8. When the smart money moves, it rarely announces its departure. It simply goes. And the for sale signs stay up a little longer each week until the seller finally accepts what the market has been trying to tell them all along. London's property market is not collapsing everywhere. The ONS April 2026 data shows the capital's average price at £553,000, a number that remains extraordinary by any historical standard. But in these 10 boroughs, something real and significant is underway, and the citywide average is doing an exceptional job of hiding it. Tower Hamlets down 12.6%. Westminster down 19.6%. Kensington and Chelsea down 8.4%. Newham down 3.2%. Enfield down 1.3%. Croydon down 2.1%. And in the boroughs where the ONS headline price still shows modest growth, the listing data, the price reductions, the extended days on market, the sellers accepting offers they would have refused 18 months ago, is telling a different story, in real time, before the official statistics have caught up. Whether you are an owner trying to understand what your home is actually worth today, or a buyer wondering whether to wait for a better entry point, the lesson from these streets is the same. Averages are comfortable. Reality is specific. And right now, in these specific postcodes, reality is being very unkind indeed. Subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment telling us which borough or city you want covered next. And share this with anyone about to make a property decision without looking at the actual data first.